And now we must speak of Zhuangzhu, who fell asleep one day and dreamed he was a butterfly. For hours he fluttered in the warm winter sun, until he no longer remembered he was Zhuangzhu. Suddenly he awoke, and he was Zhuangzhu again. But in that moment he didn't know, was he Zhuangzhu who had dreamt he was a butterfly? Or a butterfly who was dreaming he was Zhuangzhu?
I love that story of the Chinese man who dreams he's a butterfly. And when he wakes up, he ponders, was he a butterfly who dreamt he's a man? Or is he a man who dreamt he's a butterfly? It gets to the question, what is real? What is reality? Is reality just the things that we can see, touch, feel, hear, the things that we experience in our physical universe? Or is there more? Specifically with dreams, when you're in a dream, how real does it feel? Have you ever woken up in a cold sweat, your heart beating out of your chest, nervous and anxious, maybe frightened, concerned, because that dream was so intense and so, what was it? It felt real, right? So it makes you question, what are dreams? And what if dreams were just as real as what we consider to be the waking world? What if? I love these questions that we've been asking since the dawn of time. Is there more than our daily routine? Is there more than what we consider the waking world? So that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Eric, this is the Loud Boy Experience, and let's go. Life can seem pretty boring, right? It's all about routine. You sleep, you wake up, you shower, get ready for work, you go to work, you drive to work, you meet with people, you do your job, you drive home, you eat a meal, you use the restroom, you watch some entertainment, you go to bed, you sleep, you wake up, you get ready for work, you drive to work, you do your job. After work, what do? You might go out or you might go home, drive home, eat a meal, use the restroom. You see what I mean? One after another, routine, cycle after cycle, rinse, repeat. So on average, life can seem pretty boring. You know what? A lot of times that's just fine. In fact, that's preferable to disastrous things happening, the unexpected happening, and yet life throws you those curveballs as well. That breaks up the monotony, and not in a good way. So that's life. Most of it's really mundane, so driven by our routines. And it makes complete sense that we use an analogy so often these days to computers or robotics, wherein we have certain programming and in certain applications. So you have an app for work, you have an app for sleep, you have app for family, you have these certain segments of your life that are controlled by a set amount of parameters. Okay, so what do? I wake up, I get ready, I clean up, I feel good, and I go to work. I do my job. I'm running that program. And after work, I come home and I run that program. And then, I got to trigger the program. Meaning it's this one routine after another, one program after another, cycle around. That can be life. And that's our reality. And it seems, hopefully, quite boring most of the time. And that's where I believe we enjoy escape so much. How do we escape? One big way is vacation. Vacation, by definition, is not real, right? It's not your daily routine reality. When you go on vacation, and hopefully you take a trip, and wherever you may go, you're breaking those daily cycles. You're breaking out of that routine. It's an adventure. Vacation is a break from the routine. That's why people love it so much. It's a break out of the mundane, out of those daily cycles. Another way is that we escape through books. We'll read a book. And what are we doing there? We're escaping by using our imagination. And our mind can conjure in real time visual images in our minds what we're reading on the printed page. Or we watch a movie where the images are provided to us. Another form of escape, where an entire team of people, from writers to directors to entire creative team, have presented you visions of a story, an idea, and then you consume that. And what you're escaping out of your daily routine. We love movies for this reason. Another, we just love stories. Since the dawn of time, we love stories. As a human race, we love stories. But why do we love stories? Because we can imagine something outside of ourselves, something greater, something different, another person, another life, another routine. And again, it's another form of escape. One of the greatest forms of escape, though, that we do every day is dream. Dreaming is fascinating. We all do it. Whether we remember or not, it just depends on the variables and so on. I have documented over 3 years, from 2017 to 2020, I have documented over 1,000 dreams where I kept a dream journal. And it's actually on my website, examples of the dreams, and also suggestions and ideas to create a dream journal and that stuff. So I've done a lot of thinking about this, a lot of my own personal investment and study into dreams, why we do it, how to document them. But I find dreams fascinating because, like I said before, when we're in a dream, they feel real. Why is that? I mean, in real time, our minds are making up, creating a reality in which we are set and we are in. And a lot of times these can be complete fantasies where you're flying, right? Do you fly in real life? I mean, like Superman? No, we're not birds. So, but in these dreams, we can fly. Or maybe in this dream, I'm a fighter pilot. Or in this dream, I'm doing something completely outside my norm, outside my routine. I am escaping through that dream. And it feels real. It is real, right? When you're in it, isn't a dream real? Might as well be. And that's why I love that Chinese story. Because it's asking that question, what is the nature of reality? And what is the reality that we experience inside of a dream? And this question I have pondered for many, many years, and I find it very fascinating. The fact that dreams do feel and are essentially real. And when we wake up, sometimes it's almost a disappointment. Where I wake up and I'm, oh man, back to my life. Back to the mundane, the routines, the cycle, rinse, repeat over and over again. Daily life, the waking world. But that dream was pretty amazing, right? But sometimes dreams can be horrific. They can be nightmares. Where our mind is conjuring things that in waking world I would never consider or think of or do or be part of. It's kind of shocking sometimes. I'll wake up and go, whoa! And I have to take a minute. And my wife doesn't really understand this, but I am emotionally torn apart, anxious, fearful sometimes. Dreams affect me so deeply. When I come out of them, dreams are highly affected. I don't know why that is, and maybe some of us are different than others. Maybe it has to do with our empathetic. Like some of us have a program, if you will, like an empath, being very empathetic in life, right? Where I can feel, if you will, someone else's pain. I can experience it viscerally by hearing a story or someone else's experience. I can conjure that to the point to where I feel emotions. I truly feel what someone else is telling me or what I'm experiencing. And that's the way I am with dreams. Dreams, they might as well be real. So the dream world, when you're in it, is real, essentially, right? Some people, they talk about they can lucid dream. I have a couple of friends who say they can control, and I'm not sure about all that. I've never done the lucid dreaming thing. So I do find that interesting, and I wonder how, quote, real that is, and if it's a real thing. But I'm talking about the kind of dream where you're along for the ride. You're experiencing it. But again, the places that I experience in these dreams, I've never seen before. A certain house or a place or a certain fantasy land or somewhere in space or whatever it might be. I've never seen that, and unless it's like some kind of amalgam, like a puzzle, right? You take all these pieces that I've experienced. An apartment I saw on TV somewhere, a certain field from a movie, or some real life place, and my brain somehow meshes that together to where there's a building in a field with a certain apartment. It's taking all these experiences. But again, how does it stitch them together in real time? Meaning, in the moment, conjuring places, conjuring people and events and experiences in real time. That is mind-blowing. The level of reality that our minds can come up with. And it makes me wonder how our minds must be capable of much more than we can ever imagine, right? I know our minds, they say that we use like 10% of our minds. I mean, I've heard that. How do they prove that? I don't know. I have no idea of the whether it's a physical thing or I have no idea. But I've heard that said, that we use 10% of our minds, that there's this 90% intellectual, right, creative, possibly capacity that is untapped. Okay, well, I believe that these days we're reliant so much on technology to where it seems like we're using less and less of our minds. That's another subject that we should actually go down that road sometime. But the dream world, it feels real, and a lot of times it's completely alien. If you wake up like, what was that? Last night I had a dream. I was basically in the college library where I went to school, okay? The university library. And in this library, okay, you can picture a college library, right? However, this place was different, where only a quarter of it was sort of a library. The rest was classroom space. But the part that was still a library, they kind of walled it off and sectioned it off, was basically a bookstore and a gift shop, meaning there were no more letting out of books. You couldn't borrow books. You couldn't sit and study. And really what it felt like, it was a commentary almost on where we're going, right? The lack of need of physical knowledge and information in printed form. So that's what it was. And I walking around and I got upset. I was upset that this was no longer a place for learning and study and intellectual curiosity. It was no longer that. This was a place to hawk goods, or maybe you could buy a book, right? So it's just retail space, and with a gift shop, with trinkets and baubles, and just, it was ridiculous. And I got upset, and I went up to challenge them at the desk, and I came out of the dream again. It took place in my college, but the building and inside were completely different. Okay, again, it's one of those things where I'm taking one experience, but I've transplanted the inside. I've changed it completely. All right. Again, our minds create our realities when we're in the dream, and it felt real. I was there. I walked up and down the stairs, and I walked past the racks with all the things for sale. And I saw the empty classroom space on the other side of this building. I saw it all there, and an information desk, and students milling around, and people there. I was in the moment, in that dream world, and for all intents and purposes, it was real. So I came out of the dream. This is what's funny, and I told my wife about this dream this morning. I think I have part of my personality character. I think this is from childhood. A really bad experience I went through where I came out of this dream, and at the end of the dream, right before I came out of it, I wanted to make a video and expose this, right? I wanted to expose the corruption and the hypocrisy that was going on there. I had to do something about it. And I woke up wanting to do that, and then I realized, okay, that wasn't real. Okay. So you're not gonna make this video, and you're not gonna talk about this. You're not gonna do anything because it wasn't real. But I woke up, and for a few seconds there, I was in go mode. I wanted to do something about this injustice. And again, it's not like I spent a lot of time in libraries. No, I wasn't that guy. I was not that guy. When I wasn't making videos in college, I was hanging out with friends, or we had a band. You know, I was doing all the fun stuff of college. And as a TV and film major, it was an easy ride. Okay, you have to, work really hard at what we did, but it's not like it was book learning. Okay, I didn't go to labs. I didn't write long theses. I made videos. That's what I did in college. But my point is this: I did not spend a lot of time in the library. So it's really weird that I had a library dream. I almost said joke. All right. So dreams, they feel real. And let me cap that off real quick. This character, I'm not going to call it a defect or a flaw, but this personality trait that I have where I want justice, I want to do something about it. And I said, I don't know the word. I'm asking my wife this morning. What is it? She's like, vigilante? So I'm like, no, I'm not Batman. So it's not being a vigilante. But there is part of my personality trait that when I see an injustice, I want it fixed. And I want to do what I can to, okay, I'm getting off on that topic. But that dream felt real. Like so many, like all of them, basically. I'm not sure. Most of my dreams feel real. Do yours? What kind of dreams do you guys have? And do they feel just as visceral, just as real? In the moment, you're seeing, you're experiencing, you're feeling, you're touching, you're hearing. You're in that world, but it's a dream world. Why do I bring this up? Well, like I said, I've pondered these ideas for a long time. And I marvel at what our minds are capable of. I think it's brilliant and fascinating what our minds can conjure for us. If that is indeed what's happening, again, I don't know. I don't know the science or the metaphysical science behind what makes a dream. Where do they come from? I'm not completely sure. I have to assume that it comes from us. All right, so when I ask myself this question, what are dreams? And what if a dream is just as real as the waking world? Okay? That concept, 2 weeks ago, I thought, I'm going to put that in my story. For a couple of years now, I've had an idea for a story in which a character, when he falls asleep at night and dreams, in that dreaming world, that world is just as real as his waking world. And he could be another person or himself. Okay, so if little Tommy goes to bed and Tommy falls asleep and he enters a dream, when Tommy wakes up, his name is Sam. And Sam lives in another world. And he might be a different age and live in a different place. And he goes on adventures. And then when Sam goes to sleep, he wakes up and he's Tommy again. So this back and forth between, and the lines are now blurred between reality and dreaming and reality. And then that's where the big question is there a difference? Is there a difference? Like the man and the butterfly. But is it a butterfly dreaming he's a man, or a man he's dreaming he's a butterfly? So I want to take this idea and I'm going to bake it into my story as a means to ground my story in reality, okay? Ground it in the world that we know. But Aero, my main character, when he goes to sleep, he is transported to Aretherra. And in Aretherra, he's much older. Okay, again, that's where I've aged him up. Before I was doing that with a portal, like I talked about in our last video. But in this version, I'm going to do it through the dreams. And my idea is that, and then when Aero goes to sleep, I can bring him back to the real world. Think about Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, she had a cool story, a story mechanic to where Harry was grounded when each summer he went back to his aunt and uncle's house, right? And he lived with them. And then at the end of the summer, he would go back to Hogwarts and live in that fantasy magical world. And then this back and forth, until finally he leaves permanently and then Deathly Hollows and is fully part of that world. And that part's over. But that was a way to ground it in some kind of reality that's outside of the fanciful, outside of fantasy. So, like Harry Potter, but most classic stories, though, have this kind of mechanism, okay? And a lot of times it's called a fish out of water, Alice in Wonderland. When Alice goes down the rabbit hole, she's in another land. Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, the house is taken up, and where does it land? In Oz. She's taken out of a grounded real world and brought to a fantasy world. Luke Skywalker works on a moisture farm, but goes off on a grand adventure. I could keep going down and down the line. The Matrix, Neo, and he's grounded in a real world, but finds out that he's actually living in the Matrix, a computer program, a fantasy world. But the real world does exist when they unplug him. So you see what I mean? This mechanic of being able to have a grounded reality, but then our hero then becomes part of the other reality. My idea is to again, cross and blur those lines, okay? Now, my other main character, Trin, she is from Aretherra, okay? Aero's dreaming world, but it would be cool to bring her over to this other reality. Another example, Tron. In the Tron story, he gets sucked into a computer program, okay? But that's not, quote, the real world, but to the characters inside, it is. Which brings up an interesting point, an interesting idea, a concept. I was just rewatching a funny movie. It's actually, it's kind of enjoyable. It's called Free Guy. Maybe you saw it. Came out in 2020. Ryan Reynolds. And in Free Guy, he is Ryan Reynolds' character. His name's Guy. He is basically an AI character, but he doesn't know it. Okay, he's an NPC, a non-player character, and he's in a background of basically what's like a Fortnite world, right? Open world concept, lots of violence and guns and things going by, but he's just a background character in that. But the cool part of this story is that he's artificial intelligence and the kind that can learn. And he actually grows and expands his programming, right? And again, approaching that point where he's self-aware. And eventually he does become self-aware. He knows who he is and what he has to do to survive or find happiness and that kind of thing. These questions, this circles back to that question of what is real and what is reality. We've always asked ourselves this. What is real? What is reality? Because then we ask ourselves, is there anything more than this physical world that I can see, touch, feel, and experience? Is there more? A lot of religions will answer this question with the afterlife and other spiritual dimensions and such. Computers answer this question with virtual reality, where they try to construct another world. And again, our stories try to answer this. Is there more? Yes, let me show you more. I've had a dream of writing this book. And eventually I'd love to make it into a movie. Well, I'm trying to do that right now. I'm working through the story and my idea. I'm creating in real time. As I talk to you right now, I'm kind of fleshing out a lot of these ideas and thinking through them. That way I can actually write them down and create my story. But without the act of working towards it, without the act of actually putting in the time to manifest this dream, it won't become a reality. I find that really fascinating. So dreams. The fact that a dreaming world feels just as real as our waking world, I don't have all the answers. I'm going to keep thinking about this though, because and I wonder what you guys think. And I'd love to know what you've experienced. And I'd love to know if they feel just as real for you.